Hi, my name's Neil Anderson. I'm a registered traditional Chinese medicine practitioner, which means I have the tools of Tuina massage, acupuncture, herbs, uh, dietary therapy, and qigong therapy, exercise therapy. And I'm making this video to tell you how I got into this position on a more personal level, just in case you're looking for a practitioner to help with your health and wellness. Growing up in an industrial city of Windsor, Ontario, I just followed along with the current and ended up in a machine shop mold making apprenticeship. Never thought for myself much. I always just loved recess, didn't care about school. And then, eventually the adult world makes you join with it. And so nevertheless, I'm in this apprenticeship. I'm working a night shift, 4:30 in the morning. I was hungover all the time because Windsor, you can go out any night and drink. And machine shops, that's just kind of how it went in the young days. So anyways, 4:30 in the morning, not happy with my life, but just going along with it. And I'm putting threads in a hole, and I'm watching this guy that's like 15 years older than me. And all of a sudden he slams his hammer on the ground, and he's, swearing away. And it was like the first time I thought for myself, which is weird, 20, 21 years old. How could you have never thought for yourself? But it was like a deep question. I was like, do I want to be that guy when I'm his age doing this at 4:30 in the morning? And out of nowhere, from somewhere, boom, 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 boom. Just information download. I'd never experienced that before. And by the time my shift was ending at 7, I was like supercharged. And I had it in my mind, I'm going to the paramedic station to ask them about their job. So 15 minutes later, 7:15 in the morning, I just walk into this paramedic station. I ask, and the guy's looking at me like, where'd you come from? But he answered my question, whether he liked his job or not. And he's like, yeah, I guess so, otherwise I wouldn't be here. And then from there, I ended up deciding to go back to school for paramedic. And something along that way, when I was doing upgrading to help increase my chances of getting into school for paramedic, I was volunteering at one of the hospitals in Windsor, and within 2 days, 3 different people who weren't connected said, oh, you should go to school for nursing. And this was back in 2002-ish. And males in nursing, it wasn't as common as it is today. But I was like, oh, that's weird. I wasn't even thinking of that. And 3 people who don't know each other said that. So I kind of took it as a sign. And I applied for both paramedic and nursing. I ended up choosing nursing because I knew I wanted to get out of Ontario and the industrial city that I grew up, because I was at one point inspired by a 3x5 photo of some waterfall in big trees somewhere in British Columbia. My friend had showed it to me, and literally from that photo I was breathtaken, which I thought was just a word. I never knew it was an actual experience. So yeah, I ended up following through, graduating from the 2-year diploma of nursing program, which is practical nursing, which oddly, the year that I decided to go back to school, they changed the 3-year RN program to a 4-year university program. And because I hated school when I was younger, I just wanted the fastest way out from machine shop, and I just took the 2-year diploma practical nursing course, which was better for me. Why was it better? Because ultimately it led me to where I am today. So if I would have done like the RN program, I would have been like, oh, I want to go work in Emerge, and I want to, like, you know, the exciting stuff and all this. But instead, practical nurses were kind of steered towards like retirement homes and long-term care in Ontario back then. And so what happened was I ended up in it's almost like doing a maze from the finish to the start, and I ultimately got to see our medical system and how it works from the retirement homes, where people, if they don't maintain their independence, they kind of end up in these retirement homes or long-term care homes. And one day I was passing out, you know, 7 or 8 pills to 50 or 60 people every meal and, you know, nighttime, depending on the shift. But one day I asked this one lady, Anne, I was like, this older lady, how can you be the most with it physically and mentally, but you don't take any medication? And she looked me dead in the eye. Some old lady talking to a young guy. She's like, I used to be like them. One day I got fed up, stopped taking everything. And she got lucky because it's, you know, depending on what the medication was, it could have been not good, but it worked out in her favor. She said within 2 weeks, she felt better than she had in years. So that just kind of put the signal in my mind that, okay, the things that you learn in school versus life don't always line up. Then from there, eventually I moved after a year to British Columbia. Kelowna is where I ended up with the job. And it was there that I started working acute care. I started off medical, then surgical, then emerge, then mental health, rehab, and I bounced all over that hospital, occasionally extra hands in ICU, you know. And my favorite role was wearing a pager and just going to wherever the hot spot was, doing the physical work that needed to be done, and then going on to the next unit that was busiest. Because I came to know pretty quickly that I prefer the hands-on patient-to-nurse work as opposed to the politics that can also get you sucked in if you stay on one unit all the time. I don't like politics. Still don't like politics, and especially I dislike them even more so here in 2023. So anyways, from long-term care to starting to work acute 2005, and then I started travel nursing as well, all throughout the province of BC, and I got to have rural experiences, like up in Burns Lake, seeing young women giving birth to their 7th kid. The first word the kid hears is swear words. She's pissed at the husband. So I got to see like small town, rural, First Nations social dynamics. And then I'd come back to like Kelowna, and then eventually I ended up on Salt Spring and bounced around. Within about 4 or 5 years of nursing, I realized I wanted to try to help people not end up in the hospital system. So I was thinking of going towards, I actually started upgrading to do my RN, but then I was like, no, I don't want to. So I started thinking along the lines of going to school for counseling, and eventually after my own hobbies, I ended up in Victoria, having lived out of my truck for a little while because I had a data collection research job through nursing that I was guaranteed 1 to 3 years, but then after 6 months the government cut funding to it. And I was left with a vehicle that I wouldn't have purchased if I wasn't told I was guaranteed the job for 1 year. So anyways, I ended up living out of that truck, finding a place that I wanted to be based on enjoyment. I ended up in Victoria because it has schools if I want to do more upgrading, nature, and an airport if I wanted to take off. So then when I was in Victoria, thinking about going to school for counseling, one of my martial arts teachers introduced me to the principal of Oshio College, now Royal Pacific Institute. And that was the first time after talking to Dr. Yin, I had found a bridge between the mind and the body. I always knew there's like some connection, and it's become more of a interesting topic with neuroscience getting involved more closely. But it was through Dr. Yin's explanation of the 5 elements in Chinese medicine that showed me they had a good understanding of emotions and body, where sadness and grief affected the lungs, which you can picture easily. Somebody who's been married for 60 years, they lose their spouse. They're not like, they're more, right? And then anger affects the liver, fear, the kidneys, excessive joy or mania, the heart, overthinking, the digestion. So somebody that's multitasking, they're depleting their ability to digest food because the energy that should be going here to do this, to produce our energy, is going up here, and this is robbing this. So just starting to see those little simple connections that are like obvious made me realize I wanted to choose Chinese medicine. And because I could work with my hands, which I love to do ever since machine shop, ever since I was a kid. My favorite thing in grade school was playing with Play-Doh, in kindergarten anyways. So much so that I didn't want to go to grade 1 and start learning. They put me back in kindergarten for a day. So I liked working with my hands. It would give me the opportunity to be one-on-one with a patient instead of in nursing, being scattered in like 5 different directions all at once, helping somebody, and you can feel somebody else needs your help. And I wanted to be in a situation where I could have calm space to be able to really address issues. So Chinese medicine, it seemed like a good fit, and had to go through a lot of hurdles in my 30s while trying to go back to school. So much so, in a humorous manner, one of the internal medicine doctors in Victoria, where I was still working when I was still a nurse, after I finally got my license, he's like, geez, for the amount of time you put in, you could have just been a doctor. And I found it humorous because it's like, no, if I really wanted to go that route, I would have. But it's whether I could have been a doctor or a registered nurse or whatever, I'm not pleased with the medical system. from what I've seen, starting in long-term care to now, it's just, while there is an awareness of like the mind and body and all that, the system's just not set up. And then you throw in our education system and whatnot. I want to help people who want to help themselves. There's plenty of other resources for people who don't want to take initiative, and that's okay. I can help navigate that type of scenario. But I found in this life, you get what you put in, and it's hard. This world has gotten unexpectedly harder since 2019 and the thing. But I appreciate my time in the Western medicine system. Hands down, broken bones, traumas, good. Disease and disease progression, lacking big time. But that's also a tie-off to our industrialized history. Just patch them back together and get them up onto the field as fast as possible. It still has that mentality, without actually addressing what I've come to see as a big problem, which is, it's coming out in different ways now throughout the world, but our disconnect from nature. And I'm not sure that, these Green New Deals and switching to electric cars is still even touching the real problem. And I personally believe the real problem is generations and generations of the same types of struggles that go on inside between selfishness and giving. Virtue or sin. Sin being missing the mark, disharmony, that type of thing. I believe we create our own hells, and unless we really address the sources of our pains and sufferings, be it physical or emotional, I don't see the world getting actually better. I see blanket solutions that don't really get to the problem, and that's where there's a divide between people who are more materialistic based and out of touch with the spiritual. And that's been going on for decades, centuries, whatever. So I want to help people who acknowledge that this meat suit, while it is an incredible thing and it's fun to taste good things, to experience great, beautiful things, to laugh with others who are also in this meat suit. As good as it is, we're more than our meat suit and our social insurance number and all that those things require. Sadness, anger, how do we fear, guilt, how do we work through those things and listen to them and learn from them so that we can have better lives and help future generations have a greater chance to grow up in a society that is more harmonious. Anyways, if you've watched this far, and if you can kind of pick up a bit of what I'm throwing down, and you're looking for a practitioner, yes, I can work on physical ailments. I also want to help address mental and emotional suffering as well. Because this world has gotten very complicated, and I really wish that strangers could say hi to each other and we could play music together, and and be more loving rather than fearful. So yeah, anyways, if you got physical problems, you got mental emotional problems, if you want some perspective on direction, if you're young and yeah, you got your whole life ahead of you, if you're older and you want to leave this body with peace, and if you're in between, yeah, I'm here to help. If you feel like I'm the right practitioner for you, reach out.